The parliamentary debate on the constitution turned out to be yet another occasion for intense verbal attacks between the ruling BJP and the opposition. Congress thought it could trap the BJP on the issue of constitution as it had attempted during the 2024 Lok Sabha polls by propagating the narrative that BJP would change the constitution if it returned to power. However, the debate backfired on the Congress as the BJP reminded the nation of the Congress' repeated assault on the constitution to protect their family and the vote bank. How the lofty ideals enshrined in the constitution were soon subjected to political maneuvering, particularly by the very first leaders who had adopted it. Now it's time to look at the 55 years of Congress rule when it played with the constitution 77 times for its political gains. The first one by the Nehru, the so-called Masiha of the democracy. Our constitution came into force in 1950 and the first amendment was made the very next year in 1951 by Prime Minister Nehru. It is ironic that today the Congress party and the entire left-wing ecosystem accuse the BJP of curbing freedom of speech when in the first amendment Nehru expanded the scope of reasonable restrictions on the freedom of speech and expressions guaranteed as fundamental right in Article 19(1)(a) of the Constitution.
In the parliament, with the demand from the opposition, especially from the Congress, there was a debate on constitution. 75 years of constitution. Opposition, of course, wanted to corner the government on this debate. As usual with the rant of, constitution is danger. And, BJP, the ruling party, and the government actually turned it around on Congress. And one of the key references was the First Amendment to the Constitution. Now for us in Organiser, that First Amendment debate is very important because it started with the censorship imposed by the Nehru government on Organiser Weekly. And what was the context? The context was the then editor of Organiser, Mr. K.R. Malkani, was running a series questioning Prime Minister Nehru on his policy towards the Hindu refugees coming from Pakistan. It was in a way a precursor to the current debate of CAA, the Citizenship Amendment Act. That was the starting point. And Organiser was just giving a voice to the victims who were persecuted in Pakistan, the partitioned land of Bharat, and they were trying to get their citizenship rights and space in the newly independent Bharat, which Prime Minister Nehru and his unelected government, because it was an interim government, was actually denying. Again, the same ideas related to the pseudo-secularism or the secularism means Muslim appeasement. An Organiser took a stand. Prime Minister Nehru imposed censorship. Every word that was published, now free speech is a very fashionable word, but every word that was published was scrutinized by the censor commissioner. Mr. Malkani was the editor, resisted it in two ways. One, he actually published the portions, blank portions with a Caesar symbol and wrote there censor Caesar, and he continued Organiser's publication. So the censored portion was not published, but still the message was conveyed. Many people, talk about those black front page during emergency, but this was the first battle for free speech by any media house in 1949. We continued this battle till March 1950. Fortunately, it came up to the Supreme Court level, and finally on 2nd of July 1915, Organiser won this case, and the free speech for media was restored. But Nehru and his friends in Congress, even in bureaucracy, were not happy. So they came up with this fantastic idea of introducing First Amendment. with the so-called very fashionable word that is reasonable restrictions. It's not that the reasonable restrictions were not there. The original constitution, which was adopted in 1950, 26 November 1949, and then was enacted in 1951 50 on 26 Jan, already had certain reasonable restrictions, but friendly relations with neighbors was the clause that was included in it. So you can't criticize Pakistan or the status of Hindus in Pakistan, the then East and West Pakistan or present day Pakistan and Bangladesh, otherwise you can be censored. That was the message. And that's why First Amendment was introduced. And mind you, it was not elected parliament. It was a constituent assembly which was running as an interim parliament. It was an interim government. And Mr. Shama Prasad Mukherjee, Mr. Purushottam Das Tandon, all the stalwarts actually made a strong speech. And those 15 days, the debate that took place, if you read the media publications that time, everybody stood together actually for democracy, free speech, and the sanctity and spirit of the Constitution. That was the first blow on the spirit of Indian Constitution, which unfortunately the present day Congress leadership and the opposition parties do not understand and ready to accept. And that's why while discussing 75 years of Indian Constitution or Samvidhan Ka Amrut Mahotsav, this green reminder of what is the original spirit of the Constitution and who are responsible for hurting the original spirit of the Constitution, that needs to be revisited. This debate in the Parliament has given us this opportunity.
In 1950, 22 communist prisoners were killed and 107 were injured when the Madras police opened fire in the Salim Central Jail. Ramesh Thapar, a young communist journalist, condemned this barbaric attack in his magazine Crossroads. The government of Madras banned the circulation of Crossroads under the Madras Maintenance of Public Order Act. Concerned about his image, Jawaharlal Nehru wrote to Sardar Patel, stating, "We are losing the support of the public and a feeling is rising against the police such as existed under the British regime." Simultaneously, Organiser, under the editorship of K.R. Malkani, wrote a series of articles criticizing Nehru and Liaquat Ali Khan for their ineffective handling of the refugee crisis in Bengal and their apathy towards the Hindus of the nation. Nehru accused journalists of running down his reputation with a campaign based on malicious misrepresentation of facts and outright fabrications. The then editor of Organiser, K.R. Malkani, and its printer Brij Bhushan filed a petition in the Supreme Court. Thus, the two significant cases for press freedom were discussed simultaneously: Brij Bhushan versus the state of Delhi and Ramesh Thapar versus the state of Madras. These cases attacked public attention and the Indian government faced widespread criticism. On 26 May 1950, the Supreme Court squashed the restrictions as void, ruling that the government had misused Article 19(2) by misrepresenting its provision for reasonable restrictions on freedom. This legal freedom marked the beginning of the Congress regime's manipulation of the Constitution. The darkest chapter in India's political history unfolded during the emergency imposed by the Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. Opposition leaders were jailed and the infamous 42nd Amendment was enacted. The 42nd Amendment, often referred to as the mini constitution, had far-reaching consequences. It introduced the words such as secular and socialist into the preamble of the constitution, terms explicitly debated and rejected by the founding members, including Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Notably, Ambedkar had opposed the inclusion of socialists, warning it would destroy the democracy altogether. Another blow came under the former Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi and the son of Indira Gandhi, who capitulated to the Muslim hardliners in the Shah Bano case of 1986. The controversy began in 1978 when Shah Bano, a 62-year-old Muslim woman, filed a petition demanding maintenance from her husband Muhammad Ahmad Khan after he divorced her by triple talaq. The local court ruled in her favor, ordering Khan to pay Rs 25 per month as maintenance. However, Khan argued that under Muslim personal law, he was only obliged to support her during the iddat period, that is 90 days after the divorce. In the 1985, the Supreme Court upheld the Shahbanos' right to maintenance under Section 125 of CRPC, a landmark judgment empowering Muslim women. Yet the judgment angered Muslim hardliners who pressured Rajiv Gandhi's government to pass the Muslim Women Protection on Divorce Act 1986. This law overturned the Supreme Court's verdict restricting maintenance to the Iddat period, setting a dangerous precedent of the pandering to the vote bank politics. Former media advisor to Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, Sanjay Baru, in his book The Accidental Prime Minister, stated that while Manmohan Singh held the office of Prime Minister, he wielded little real power. He had minimal control over his cabinet members, lacked authority in key appointments, and Congress President Sonia Gandhi often made decisions on files that ultimately bore his signature. Baru also asserted that Sonia Gandhi was the de facto authority. Sonia Gandhi was allegedly referred to as the Super PM, exerting an upper hand over the Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. The next generation of Congress dynasty, Rahul Gandhi, also showed disdain for the constitutional processes. In 2013, he publicly tore up an ordinance designed to protect convicted lawmakers from the immediate disqualification. This ordinance had been approved by the cabinet led by Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, yet Rahul Gandhi's dramatic act undermined the authority of the constitutional post of Prime Minister. The Congress party's disregard for constitution continues, as in Karnataka, Congress promised reservation for Muslims in place to safeguard Muslim personal laws. This act is in stark contrast to the Places of Worship Act 1991, which effectively deprived Hindus of reclaiming temples converted into mosques before 1947. Congress also passed the Waqf Act, granting Muslim bodies significant power to claim any land, furthering their appeasement politics. This historical account highlights Congress' repeated attempts to manipulate the constitution for its political agenda, from Nehru to Rahul Gandhi. The track record is a stark reminder for their disregard for constitutional ideals in favor of dynastic dominance and the vote bank politics.